So the big story, of course, that is dominating today is President Cyril Ramaphosa expected to officiate the repatriation and restitution homecoming ceremony for the remains of South African freedom fighters who lost their lives in Zambia and Zimbabwe during the apartheid era. That ceremony is already underway. It's at the Freedom Park Heritage Site and Museum in Tshwane. You remember on Wednesday, the South African government received the remains of 42 liberation fighters at Waterkloof Airforce Base in the presence of their families. We've been discussing the significance of the ceremony. We've also been talking to the names of those that have been brought back to South Africa and their legacy to the country. And we'll continue just to wrap up that conversation and to share one or two more names with you. The member of the National Executive Committee of the ANC and Deputy Chair of the Archives and Heritage Subcommittee of the ANC, Waterkloof, being with us since the early hours of this morning, since the hour of almost 5 o'clock, and then Cultural Annals Professor Patika Ntuli also with us this morning to talk about this. So as we wrap up this conversation, there's just a few more names that we wanted to just pay our respects to, because a lot of the times we speak about the 42 remains that are back here, but each one of them have a story to tell, and it's important that we're telling these stories. I want to begin with one which I know, Prof, you picked out and you want to speak to, is Lotelo Edwin Makoti, PAC member, originally from Soweto, was a founder member of the PAC, and went into exile in the 1960s, served in the PAC leadership positions while in exile, based in Botswana, Tanzania and Zimbabwe, and he died in Zimbabwe on the 21st of April 1989. Perhaps you can tell us more.
What a very, very intellectual and a very interesting person. I met him in Nigeria, in Tanzania. He had very interesting ideas. He also helped us write a book called Uhambo Lomahambi, the Traveler's Journey, where the issues of how do you handle contradictions in society, the antagonistic contradictions and non-antagonistic things. In South Africa, we turn the antagonistic, non-antagonistic into antagonistic instead of the opposite. And he also was a person who had a whole history of the struggles of what happened in the Eastern Cape. He felt so passionately about the family that he knew of the Vulindlela brothers, who were 5 brothers that were executed in 1964 from the same mother, same father. And he also spoke strongly about Maqoma, who had fought close to 14 wars of liberation. There, but no monument for him. There's only little monument, like this. So Makoti is relevant, in that, on how to, also on the principles of a united front, because we learned that when we were in China. So when you talk about the government of national unity, the preparation for that, how do different parties relate to each other, what are the ideas that the party goes in when you're going to deal with these other people. So that information will be so very, very useful when you deal with the issues of national unity, different actually perspective. He was an absolute authority on that.
Yeah, amazing, wonderful recollections on his life. There's 2 more, in fact, I want to speak to, but the first one is Florence Moposho. Born in 1921, this one specifically mentioned by the president, in Alexander Township. Moposho drew inspiration from the 1952 defense campaign and joined the ANC, was instrumental in organizing the Congress of the People, which adopted the Freedom Charter in 1955. Later became a full-time organizer for ANC and participated in many campaigns. Mobilized women in Alexander for Transvaal demonstrations against passes for African women. Also participated and mobilized women to participate in nationwide anti-pass women's movement. And that was, of course, in 1956. We all know that date very, very well, in August. Mobilized domestic workers in urban areas and later in rural areas. In 1957, served in Alexander Bus Boycott Committee. Detained numerous times, subsequently banned in 1964. Went into exile in Lusaka, Zambia, then later to Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. While in exile, she was sent to Berlin in the German Democratic Republic to represent the organization at the Women's International Democratic Federation. While she was in Germany, she delivered speeches at numerous public meetings. She conducted radio and television interviews. She also assisted in consolidating the relations between the GDR, especially the women's organization, and the ANC. She served in that post for a period of 4.5 years. In 1969, was a delegate at the ANC's Morogoro conference, heading the women's section, elected to the ANC's NEC in 1975, and was re-elected to the NEC by the ANC conference in June 1985. That's where my biography ends of hers. Where was it that she finally was laid to rest? Was it Zambia or Zimbabwe?
In Zambia.
In Zambia.
Yes, she was laid to rest in Zambia because she ended up heading the... Remember when the ANC was banned, then what happened is that some structures had to be reformed outside. And she became the head of the women's section,
right,
in Lusaka. Women's section, which later became the ANC Women's League today. And one thing about her is the fact that she was such a rounded activist, because she was a trade unionist. She also understood what is it that the needs of the communities. She rallied communities to protest on things that were very close to them, like the bus boycott in Alex. But beauty about Mam Florence is that we see now the wave of the strength of the ANC Women's League. She is the one that made sure that the women become organized in exile.
Amazing.
Mam Gertrude Sope took over from her when she passed away. We know that Mam Gertrude is 99 years old now. She is the one that started the women's section.
Wow,
you know?
and back here in South Africa. And then there's that final one, as I wave you both goodbye, because I'm sure its time is up. I've been alluding to little Tsepo Modise, born in exile in Sweden on the 28th of December 1965, and he died in Lusaka, Zambia on the 22nd of September 1977. He was 11 years old. What's the story there? Do you know much more?
Look, well, we know that he got sick, but I think the importance of this story of Tsepo is that parents and these comrades in exile lost families through natural causes. So as life went on, they raised their children, but they also lost their children. And therefore, as we think about them as martyrs, we must also remember that they suffered as families. And Comrade Billy had never recovered from the fact that he lost his son at a young age. But these are the sacrifices that they had to go through and endure for this liberation. And we must never forget as South Africans that these people laid down their lives for us, and we must always take a moment to remember that South African liberation and South African freedom was never free. Even young people laid down their lives for it.
Thank you so much to both of you. It's been an absolute pleasure having you with me and teaching me as we go along, and I hope teaching the rest of South Africans that are tuned in and watching this the importance and the significance of this day that we're looking at today. Professor Patika Ntuli, cultural analyst, and Notgawe Mahfoud, member of the National Executive Committee of the ANC and Deputy Chair of the Archive and Heritage Subcommittee of the ANC. Let's take a break. We'll be with you after this.